Hi, and welcome to this edition of Business Supes, where we talk to successful local business owners, learn a little bit about them, their business, and of course, their business superpower. So today I am joined by Kirsty Ray with Tulsa Family Doulas. Kirsty, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. So I always like to start off with the origin story. So tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your business.
I've been a doula for about 8 years now, going on 9. Honestly, it goes back to probably about 12 years ago, is when everything started for me. It was actually Easter of 2011. I found myself in a big turning point in my life where I had to make a lot of decisions. I was actually homeless. I lived under a bridge. I was pregnant. I was just a teenager. And it was Easter, and I was just sitting under this bridge, and a lot of things had happened to get me to that point. I sat there just so mad and frustrated and, crying and kicking the rocks that were under there. And then I stopped, and I was sitting on this bridge and just like listening to the cars go by overhead, and was like, okay, but what am I going to do? Because I'm not staying here. Yes, this is where I am. And hopefully this is rock bottom for me. It better be. So, I got up from that point, and I had a lot of dreams, and I had a lot of visions and plans. And I was like, okay, but what I need to do first is I need to stand up. I need to get up from under this bridge, and I need to take a step, and then I need to take another step, and I need to just keep going and not stop. That's where it started. And so I worked very hard. I worked 80, 90 hours a week while pregnant, while just a teenager, saved and saved and saved, and bought pay cash for a car. As soon as I had my daughter, we moved into an apartment that I paid for. We just kept going from there. I just didn't stop, and the passion just kept growing. And because I had a baby so young, there was such a passion for helping other people that were expecting, because I was so lost and didn't know what I was doing, and I just needed someone to just believe in me. And so that was a big starting point for me. Today I have 3 little girls. I'm married. We homeschool our children. We have this gorgeous life. We own multiple businesses. This is just one of them. And we're just, living life. But that's how we started, how I started, and how I got here.
Wow, that's quite an inspirational story. So how old were you at that point when you were under the bridge?
I was 19.
So you said you got a job and you worked 80 to 90 hours a week. What kind of job were you able to get?
So I was working multiple fast food jobs. And so I would go from one to another. So I was working all day long. So I was working Chick-fil-A, I was working Sonic, and just nonstop. A day off was only working one of those jobs. That was nice. But yeah, I just hit the ground running. I knew what I had to do, knew I needed to make money, knew we weren't going to stay there, so just made that decision.
Wow, and that's amazing, an amazing story. Thanks so much for sharing that. And it's just so heartwarming and encouraging, the human spirit and that the desire to overcome and to take that. I love you talking about taking that extra step, one step at a time, and how putting those steps together can lead you to a better place. So thanks so much for sharing that with us. So you talked a little bit about being a doula. What is a doula?
So there's a common misconception. There's a doula and there's a midwife, and people intertwine those and think that they're the same thing. So a doula is not medical. They do not deliver the baby. They don't do anything medical. We are an emotional support person. So we're coaching the person through labor. We're educating them throughout their pregnancy. But when it comes time to deliver, we don't do that part. Whereas on the reverse side, a midwife actually delivers the baby. They're in charge of the delivery, all of the medical, their blood pressure, like everything like that. That's what they're in charge of. And so our side of it is not that. That being said, so a lot of doulas do prefer to support people that are delivering at home. Doulas are seen as like very natural and crunchy, and they want to go that route. Me and my agency, we don't do that. I find that the disconnect is actually in the hospital. The mother and the father are usually saying like, oh, well, we're going to have our nurse, and then we've carefully chosen our doctors. So we're going to have this wonderful team helping us through labor, pop that bubble and say, Your nurse has 3 other patients. She's just popping in to check vitals. Your doctor's not coming until you're crowning. So they're alone. And once that reality sets in, they're like, well, how are we going to know what to do and positions? And so that's why we're there. We're just there the whole time, coaching, positions, massage, keeping them comfortable, explaining things along the way. We do know all things medical, we just don't perform them. So in a situation where a decision needs to be made, we're able to have a conversation with them and make sure they understand what's going on and remove any fear from the situation.
So so you said that you do most of yours at the hospital. Do you all do any of them with home births, or is it predominantly hospital?
We will, but that's just, it's not really our target market, and it doesn't happen very often at all. There are several doulas in the area that primarily do home births, so that's usually who people go to.
Okay. Yeah. And it's interesting that you talk about the nurse and the doctor, because there's a chance the doctor may not be there. You may end up getting somebody else. I remember daughters were born at a hospital that was a teaching hospital. And, for the longest time, we had one of the senior residents was there taking care of us because the doctor was unavailable. So that's an interesting point. And I think people, build this up to be one way, and then obviously it doesn't always go the way that people think. So what kind of training does a doula need?
Yeah, so that's where things get sticky. It's good and it's not good. There's no governing entity when it comes to being a doula. So you right now could just decide you're a doula. Nobody can stop you. Buy yourself a name tag and walk into a hospital and say you're a doula. That's good and bad because one, the government is not controlling like the type of things that we do. But it gives us a bad reputation because have been so many doulas that have come along and caused problems, especially in the hospital. And that's made nurses and doctors very wary of our profession. And so they have horror stories of what these people have done. And so that's where it's different for us, and we have the agency model. So I own the agency, and I have several doulas that work for me or work for the agency. And we have a very, very long list of certifications that I've compiled that I require of my people. And so I go into the hospitals, I go into the OBGYN offices and make our name, I'll put our name out there so that people know if you see this logo, if you see this name, this is the long list of trainings that they have had to go through, certifications that they hold. So we've really built that reputation up, especially over the past 8-9 years that we've been in business. So that's really nice.
So that's fantastic. So what are some questions that people who are looking for a doula should be asking of the doula before they move forward with them?
Yeah. So one big question is, tell me what trainings you've taken. That's a great way to just gauge, how seriously they've taken this. If they're rattling off multiple trainings and certifications and continuing an education that they're doing, that's a good sign they're taking it seriously. Also asking them why they became a doula is very, very important, because that's going to tell you if they became a doula out of trauma, which is really dangerous. A lot of doulas have a very traumatic birth and they go into like advocacy mode, and they need to make their birth make sense. And they do that by going into the birth world to try to save, quote unquote, other women from that happening. And they're not going into the setting with good intentions. And so if they say, what made you become a doula? And they start spouting like all of these traumatic things that happened to them, that's a really bad sign. That tells you they did not deal with their own stuff, and they're going to use you to actually work through their trauma. So we don't want that.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. So having a doula working with you, what are some of the things that you and your people coach? And I'm assuming you work with the husband and the wife, not just the wife. So what are some of the things that you all coach people on?
So we really start by getting to the bottom of what are their goals, because everyone's goals are different when it comes to labor. I mean, sure, some people say, I want to go completely naturally, no drugs, no anything. And some people want the drugs as soon as they can have them, which is totally fine. So we really get to the bottom of what their goals are. Then we actually go through personality assessments with them to really understand them at their core, make sure that we're communicating with them properly. Because, if they reach out to us and want more information on circumcision or something, the type of information that we give them is going to change based on their personalities. So we want to make sure that we're meeting them where they're at. And then it's really from there. I mean, we're trained on all the things. And so it's to the extent of what they want to know.
Okay. So do you also provide assistance and coaching after the baby's born, like with breastfeeding and nutrition and that type of stuff?
Yeah, so we are all educators as well. So we teach baby, like baby classes, breastfeeding classes, and also birth classes. We also are postpartum doulas. So we'll actually go into their home after they've had their baby and even stay the night. So we'll keep the baby in the nursery so they can get a good night's sleep. If they're nursing, we'll just bring the baby in to nurse and take the baby right back out. They don't always go back to sleep right after nursing. So that's why we're there to, if we need to just walk with them or rock them or whatever. A lot of people, if they know they're going to sleep on like Wednesday and Friday, they can get through the other nights, but it's really the unknown of, okay, so we're never going to sleep again. And that really is hard, especially like you're recovering from birth or if they had a C-section, they're recovering from major surgery. And just the mental like hormones and everything, the first thing they say is like, well, are you eating well and sleeping well? Well, no, I had a newborn. Like, I'm not doing any of that.
Right.
So we get to come in and help with that. And that's probably one of our most popular things that we do, actually.
Very cool. So kind of changing gears here a little bit. So what was it about owning your own business that appealed to you versus maybe going to work for somebody else?
So when I became a doula, I actually met a woman that was starting an agency, and she was like, do you want to come under my wing? Do you want to I'll be your mentor, basically. And I was like, absolutely, because I have no clue what I'm doing. And she had been a doula for, I think, like 9 years at that point or something. And so she was very well educated. She knew exactly what she was doing. So I actually came under her wing under this agency. And so she owned the agency and I worked under her for about 4 years. And then she called me up one day and she was like, okay, it's time. I'm going to retire. I want to talk with you about taking over the agency. And of course I was like, absolutely not. That's crazy. That is not me. You called the wrong person. But the more I thought, she was like, no, think about it. And so the more I did, talked with my husband, I was like, I think this is what I've been preparing for, actually, without realizing it. I had a lot of unique things happen in just the 4 years that I was a doula, things that, senior doulas of 20 years don't even experience. And I think that all of those things were preparing me for ownership of the agency. And so I called her back and I said, okay, let's meet. Let's figure out the details. So I've owned the agency since 2018. So yeah, definitely didn't start out wanting to own it or start one. But here I am and I wouldn't change a thing.
So what is it that you love about owning your own business?
I love, honestly, I love the lower, people that are working under me. I love being able to mentor them and walk them through this journey, because the model of the agency is I hire independent contractors. And so they are all business owners as well. And so I'm able to be a business that's hiring businesses and really mentor them through. And I love taking in a brand new doula and walking them through, what is this life? What is, and how to make it easier on them, because I have that. And I've just, the burnout rate for doulas is 1.5 to 2 years. People don't make it in this field. People hate this field. Like, once they get into it, the on-call lifestyle, the unknowns, it's a hard career. It's a very emotional career. Things go wrong. And so to be able to take them under my wing and teach them how to do things I love that part of it. It's probably why I homeschool too, because I just love that side of just helping them learn.
So is there something that you do to address that burnout, or do you find that the people you're working with stay for that 1 to 2 years and then they kind of flame out and go on to something else?
Anyone that I've had come in has been here, they're staying. So I have fixed it. The way that the reason people burn out is the on-call lifestyle. So someone hires you, you're immediately on call 24/7. Babies like to come whenever.
Right.
You
On their own time.
Yeah, especially in the middle of the night. That's when they love it.
Mhm.
Um, so you don't get to go on vacation. You can't say, of course I'll be at your recital, honey. Like I'll be there. I'll be at your play. You can't commit to anything. Your whole life is taken over by this career. So the way that we fixed it in the agency is our doulas are actually paired up in teams. So when someone hires a doula, I send two doulas to interview and do the consultation and say, okay, these are your doulas, both of them. And then they work 1 week on, 1 week off throughout the year. And so anyone that goes into labor on the week that they're on call, they go to the births, vice versa. And it's fixed it. They love what they do. On their off week, they can pick up other things like teaching classes. We do placenta encapsulation, things like that. They can do all of those things, but they're not on call for those. Those are scheduled for the most
Okay.
part. Those are pretty scheduled. And so yeah, we fixed it. I mean, we have some that started when I started, and everybody's pretty content. It's like a very feasible career. Yeah, so I think we did fix it. And people are staying.
All right. So the question that kind of prompted this whole interview series, what would you say your business superpower is?
Probably like coaching other people, which is vital for what I do as the owner. I think I'm a really good coach in that aspect, and like walking people through situations and how to do things. During COVID of 2020, I went ahead and just went online and got my life coaching certification. I'm never going to like promote that or do that on like as a job, but I was like, this is going to make me better as a boss, as a mom, as a sister, like as a wife. Like this is just going to give me skills to help people around me and utilize those. So probably that.
That's awesome. Well, and I think that's so great. And that's something that great business owners are able to do. They're able to teach other people how to do the things that they either don't want to do or don't have the time to do, so that, the other people can focus on that 10 to 12 to $20 an hour work, and the business owner can focus on that $500 an hour work, which is where the business owner needs to focus. So that's fantastic. Okay, last question. What piece of advice do you have for other business owners?
Just do that one thing. So many people have these big, huge visions. Like I said, 12 years ago, have these big, huge visions, and they're just like, you're just trying to reach those, but it's kind of pull back and look in the moment. Like, what do you need to do right now? Like, what little step do you need to take, and start taking those steps? And eventually you're going to look up and go, oh, like I'm doing this, I've arrived, I'm going to keep going. But it's those little bitty steps that people, they're not as fun, they're not as exciting, and like, oh, get your LLC and do like all these things. They're not as fun and glamorous, but you have to do those things to get to the next thing. And so keep your head down, keep just do one step at a time, and you'll get there.
So that's fantastic advice, and I love how you kind of brought it full circle from telling your origin story and taking that one step to making that your piece of advice. So fantastic advice. We certainly do appreciate you taking some time today with us to share your story and tell us about your business superpower.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is an awesome series.